Good everyone. I hope you guys have an amazing day. So I will be doing a very short video today, uh, explaining how to create a user. Um, at times, right, when you're working with Snowflake, you might want to create a user. Now, obviously, you can create a user using a SQL query, which I love the most because I love to do things using SQL than a UI interface. So that's my favorite approach. Now, obviously, right, if you are a Snowflake admin or a Snowflake architect, you might sometimes get a request, hey, can I have access to Snowflake? Can I create a user? Would you create me a user? Create me as a user in Snowflake. So you could do that. And there are a very simple way you can do that. Obviously, I'm going to show you a very simple way. Now, however, if you look at the Snowflake documentation, you can look into that. You can see that you can create or replace user with object properties. Now, object properties could be a lot of things you can cover, which is very interesting. Like you can do your password, login name, display name, first name, middle name, email, must change password, disabled, days to expiry. There are a lot of things you can do. Up to you how you wanted to configure it. And obviously, if you're working in a Snowflake, you might have certain patterns uh, or to set in place with respect to creating a user, altering a user, what kind of properties you need to assign, right? The few things like I would assume like your name, first name, middle name, email, the password must change, days to expire. These are the things uh, should be considered as the basic. Now, there are a lot of things, like I said, you can also do with respect to MFAs and other stuff, right? For instance, you can enable the multi-factor and all kind of stuff. I'm not going to get into that. I mean, if you want, you can go through this documentation to play around. What we're going to do, I'm going to show you how to create a simple user, and then I'll show you how to log in using that user. It's pretty simple. Nothing fancy, and you can also assign a role to the user. You can also obviously you need to assign a role. You can drop a user. You can describe a user, and a lot of great things you can do. Right. Um. So coming to that, so you could open a free the SQL interface by going here, or you can go to workspace to do that, right? So I just did a basic, create the SQL file, and then I just made sure account admin. Um, I am using this warehouse, and yep. So the first thing, create a user, test user. You could name whatever you want. So the default role. So if you don't want to give the public role, so sometimes what happens, right? You perhaps won't know what role you need to assign, right? So you can do something called show roles. Now, if I do show roles, you can see the kind of roles you have. You have public, you have security admins, you have sysadmin, your user admin, and so let's say I wanted to keep this role, right? Uh, Snowflake Lightning role. Um, where is that? Yeah, and you can just see if it works. Sorry. If it doesn't, we'll see if it works or not, right? And let's assume I don't want to change the password. I mean, okay, let's assume we want to change the password. Let's see if I have. Um, okay, so I created a test user, right? Now, what I'll do, I will do. Um, I'll go here and I'll just do incognito mode. And let's see what happens, right? Obviously, it'll ask you to log in. Okay, so let's see, test user, and What's the username? I forgot the username. Password. Test123, right? Test123. Okay, so it asks you to change the password. So I'll put some, crazy password. You know, doesn't matter what password I put, but we're going to delete the user anyways. Okay, now, so I changed the password. So you will see the login experience, what you get. And so not found, obviously that's fine because, so if you look into that, here you will see you get Snowflake learning role here, and you see the user got created and you got assigned a role. And one thing to note, you will not have an account admin role, you will have public or Snowflake learning role, right? Because you're not an admin. So now let's do something, right? So if I go to, say, let's create a user, right? Let's see if we try to create a user. If I, let's go back and let's try to create a user and see what happens. Let's see, test user one, right? For instance, can you do that? We'll see. Insufficient privileges, right? So that means you can't do that because you're not an account admin. So this is one of the things you need to consider, right? When you're giving role to a user, you need to make sure what kind of role that user needs to have. This is very important, right? Otherwise, if you give an admin role to a user, that user might end up in doing things which you do not expect them to do. And so you can't create a user, can't drop the user, right? Because you don't have it. So you can view the stuff, you can query stuff, and you can query the table. So yeah, you can create your own role, you can assign it. So now there's another thing. Let's say if I don't want the user name, I don't want test user. I wanted to change it to, say, David Cohen, for instance. Okay, so you successfully executed that. Now, let's see. Now, if I wanted to, say, describe a user, if I wanted to say, explain to me about this user, let's see what you find out from about this user. Um, Name, test user, um, type, login name, all kind of stuff, right? So that's one thing you can do, right? You can alter a lot of things, right? If you go to the alter user, there are a lot of things you can user rename, you can reset password, you can abort all queries, delegated authorization, you can remove delegated, you can set tag, a lot of things you can do, right? And you can also do the MFA stuff and all. So this is something, like I said, right? I've explained it very basic things, but you could expand this based on your requirement. However, um, you know, if you wanted to enroll MFA, that's something needs to be agreed on, right? And I think it's a good practice, but just don't assume that every business wants to have it. But though, in my opinion, it's a good option. But something to consider, right? If you're creating a user, what kind of access you wanted to give, what kind of parameters you need to set for these users. Um, and you can go through it, and you can, this is pretty basic. It's nothing fancy there, but I just thought it's important you guys should know how to create a user, because it's a very basic operation and it's more commonly get requested. Hey, can you give me access to Snowflake? Obviously, you need to create a user, right? And kind of user depends upon the kind of roles, right? So if I say, look, I'm not interested to have this user anymore, you can drop the user. You can also set an expiry date, but let's say I wanted to drop a user. Test user does not exist, which is interesting. I think I renamed it. That's why. Okay, so just remember one thing: when you rename a user, which is pretty common sense, but people do make mistake. You should, and when you try to drop it, make sure you drop the user to the current version of the name you have, the username. So now, if you try to describe it, right, what happens? You will see that existing, right? So this seems, like I said, right, seems like a pretty basic thing, but it's a very important step in Snowflake, because obviously that's how it all gets started, right? You give them some access, give them roles, and based on that, they can do a lot of things, right? So I just wanted to cover basic stuff. I apologize if it seems too basic, but I just wanted you guys to know how you can create a user. So that's all I wanted to cover. Hope you guys have an amazing weekend. Adios.